Hi everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and that was a 35mm film strip. So right off the bat, we are fibbing about what we do here. That was using my new little film scanner that uses a cell phone. I didn't do it live this time because of, again, ran out of time, but we'll be doing some more of those in the future. More interesting niche related things. Yeah, what are we going to get started with? So I've been working with National Archives materials, especially materials that I'm concerned about that might be removed. So in the course of doing that, I've run across lots of cool things from government agencies, which we've been showing in the past. This one is a pesticide public service announcement featuring puppets.
Beulah, what are you going to do? I'm going to spray for silverfish. Oh, Beulah, any good housewife knows that you remove the food from the shelves before you spray with a pesticide. Now, dear.
Short and sweet. I love it. So good. There's more. Unfortunately, they don't feature puppets. Unfortunately. Anyways, back to showing you some cornet films. This one is reading stories, plots, and themes. Enjoy.
There are all kinds of stories. Many are about animals. Many others are about people. But as different as one seems from another, stories have certain things in common. They have particular characters in particular settings. In addition, things happen to these characters. That's the plot of a story, what happens to the characters. One plot might involve the adventures of a sailor. Another, those of a young pioneer boy. Still another plot might describe the things that happen to a Viking. Another, the lonely wanderings of a cowboy. These things that happen in a story are often the things we notice first, and they help make the story interesting. Now, one of the things that happens in A Dog on Barkham Street by M.S. Stoltz is that Edward Frost is constantly being chased by the bully Martin Hastings. Edward is the main character in the story. And the fact that he had only one enemy didn't help him much, because that enemy lived right next door.
Why doesn't Dad get a job in Alaska?
Is it Martin Hastings again?
But the bully next door isn't all there is to the plot. You see, Edward wants a dog, and he keeps trying to convince his mother that he's responsible enough to take care of one.
I suppose you had some reason for going out in the pouring rain. Aside from its nuisance value, that is.
Well, somebody left the hammer out in the rain and it might have gotten rusty.
Somebody?
Well, I'm somebody, aren't I?
But try as he would, Edward didn't seem to be any closer to getting that dog.
How responsible do I have to be before I can have a dog?
Edward, look at today. Bed unmade, hammer out in the rain, you out in the rain.
But I'm cleaning my whole room.
You started to. Look at this mess.
The plot of this story involves the things Edward does to get a dog. It also involves the things he does to get away from the bully next door, like running away with his friend Rod. Plot involves things the characters do. Plot also involves things that happen to the characters. The things that happen in a story don't have to be real. For example, in The Borrowers by Mary Norton, even young Kate has trouble believing the story Mrs. May tells her.
Are there such things as people? Other people living in a house who borrow things?
What do you think?
I don't know. There can't be, and yet, sometimes I think there must be, because of all the things that disappear. Safety pins, for instance. Factories go on making safety pins, and every day people go on buying safety pins, and yet somehow there never is a safety pin just when you want one. Where are they all? Where do they go to?
The plot of a story may be true, or it may not be. But in a good story, the things that happen seem real. That's partly what makes reading them so much fun. But there's usually even more to a good story than just things that happen. Take A Summer Adventure by Richard Lewis, for example. The plot of this story is clear and straightforward. A young boy collects animals for his own private zoo. But as we continue reading this particular story, looking at the things Ross sees, finding out some of his thoughts, going along with what he does, we may begin to sense the author's feeling about his story. This underlying feeling, often called the theme, is what we sense of the writer's attitude toward life. Most often, he doesn't put this feeling into words, but we may grow to understand that feeling as the story moves along. As Ross looks at these animals in their natural environment, he begins to enjoy them even more than the ones back home in his zoo, the ones in captivity. Ross begins to think, and so do we. Each time Ross struggles with another animal, he notices how fiercely it defends its freedom, how strongly it resists being captured. As Ross begins to get new ideas about nature and freedom, so do we. Long after we've forgotten details of the plot, we might share with Ross the writer's feeling about caging wild animals. The plot of a story is something quite definite, something we can all follow. For example, what happens in this story is quite clearly described by Annie. The book is My Brother Stevie by Eleanor Clymer. Annie and Stevie live with a grandmother who really doesn't want them and doesn't know what to do with them. The plot of the story tells what happens when someone finally shows Stevie some affection. Stevie had a new teacher, Miss Stover. Sometimes Miss Stover would let Stevie take Skipper for a walk after school. And one weekend, when she had to go away, Annie and Stevie took care of Skipper the whole time. The theme of a story may never be stated in so many words. Instead, we go beyond the plot to thinking first about Stevie's happiness when he has someone, something to love. And later, we sense his unhappiness when those loved ones go away.
What's the matter? Nothing.
Quit that. Go do your homework.
I haven't got any homework.
You're a liar. Miss Stover gave you work.
She did not. She isn't even there.
We somehow learn from Stevie the place of love in everyone's life. We might call this the theme. There are all kinds of good stories, and we read them for all kinds of reasons. But those stories we like best are usually those that, in the end, give us a sense of how the author feels about his story, about his characters, about life itself. This we may call the theme. The theme might deal with the struggle of animals to be free and the meaning of freedom. or it might deal with everyone's need to have someone to love. But however we perceive the theme, a good story is usually one we enjoy reading. Its theme may make some change in us, a change that can remain long after the details of the plot are forgotten.
That was sweet. Always love a film that features a character named Skipper, as that is my name. Mostly they're dogs, though. Although, no, there's Skipper and the Three R's, which is a boy going to kindergarten. But there you go. So this is another National Archives film, and this one's a bit of a quandary. It's kind of interesting. The title of it is Toward Justice Supreme, and the item number has the item number, and then it says left. See if you can figure out what's going on here. Enjoy.
Yes, I'm listening.
Oyez, 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 all persons having business before the Honorable, the Supreme Court of the United States are admonished to draw near and give their attention, for the court is now sitting. God save the United States of America and this honorable court.
And so, the United States Supreme Court is finally born. Here, in this room, on August 1st, 1791. Oh, how we haggled and argued and fought. But here it is, the most unique judicial system in the world, wholly American and wholly a marvel.
Oh, a marvel indeed. And will these 6 wise fools dare to define the law without the power to enforce it? Here they argue their first case and cannot even reach a decision. Will they now tell the president what is law? Or will they presume to tamper with the decisions of Congress?
Someone must, you know. It's true, Mr. J and his associates are confused and timid, perhaps, but they will learn and grow here in Philadelphia.
And in their confusion, they sit and sit for 3 years without a single decision.
Well, not so much sitting, my friend, as riding. Do not forget, these gentlemen must preside over the circuits as well. By horse and carriage over nameless roads in all weather, they will bring justice to all the states.
Yes.
After a full day's ride by horseback, I was forced to share a small bed at the inn with an exceedingly large barge master. Intolerable. And I swear the man could not have bathed for a month. To what avail do we, the justices of this court, suffer these hardships? Why, I find myself little more than a traveling postboy.
But now, in 1793, this court will vigorously make its first historic decision.
Ah, yes, a landmark. Chisholm versus Georgia. Can the citizen of one state bring suit against another state? Georgia believes not, and shows such disregard for the Supreme Court that she will not even send advocates to defend her interests.
Well, indeed, sir. But the court will decide once and for all whether any individual state can be absolutely sovereign.
And so they will find for the plaintiff's right to bring suit against any state and thus create controversy.
Oh, yes, my friend. Controversy will always ride as companion to this court.
Oh, sir, this court is and will remain powerless to act on its decision. Why, the Georgia legislature now passes a bill forbidding any action in the jurisdiction.
Any federal marshal or other person who executes any process issued by the Supreme Court in this case shall be declared guilty of felony and shall suffer death without benefit of clergy by being hanged.
Congress now passes the 11th Amendment to ensure state sovereignty. There is the result of your court's first trial. Decision, defiance, and re-legislation.
Oh, but look ahead, my friend. Look ahead. This body is shaping a judicial system the likes of which will give this nation a government of such strength and probity as to be unknown on earth since God created man. Why, right now, with no American Admiralty laws for precedent, these gentlemen are confronting and solving problems on how to deal with the prizes of war captured by belligerents and brought to our neutral ports.
Admittedly, these are bold and quite wise decisions. Indeed, bringing inland waters into our Admiralty jurisdiction in the United States versus La Vengeance was most impressive.
And I'm certain, sir, that as a patriot, you must be more than modestly pleased to know that the court has elected to renounce the wigs and puffery of our former English lords.
Oh, quite so. Quite so. Indeed, to have said, King George be damned, and then to have our justices resembling his popinjays would have been intolerable. But this incessant controversy is equally intolerable. Why, even the president fans its flames.
Ah, you refer to his appointment of John Rutledge to succeed John Jay as Chief Justice.
I do indeed. Why does not Mr. Washington simply advance an associate justice to Mr. Jay's place?
For the answer to that, sir, you would do well to hear Mr. Thomas Jefferson on that subject.
It seems to have been intended merely to establish a precedent against the descent of that office by seniority, and keep 5 mouths always gaping for 1 sugar plum.
To Mr. Washington's wisdom.
And, sir, through the years ahead, this court will alone be responsible for those personal liberties guaranteed by our Constitution, and they will succeed magnificently. Oh, is it not a marvel, sir, when you consider that this body has no influence over either the purse or the sword, no direction of the strength or wealth of this society, and can take no active resolution whatsoever? It may truly be said of them that they have neither force nor will, but merely judgment.
It is a marvel indeed, sir.
And it all began here in this room, here in Philadelphia.
Moderation. Talk about the context.
All right, so there were some good comments, guesses. Here's my guess: is it was indeed a multi-projection presentation. You had one projector that was showing the left of whatever, I don't know. You know, you would go to these pavilions or you'd go to these kind of visitor centers, and they would have some sort of thing. Normally it was slide projectors. They had multiple slideshows showing on different walls, but this one was 16 millimeter. You noticed the audio was really good. So if we go back, and we see, how can I stop that? So did you see that it said that it was 16 and 35 millimeter mag sound? And that's why that was so good, because 35 millimeter mag sound is, has this amazing amount of space to store information. So it is likely that there was some sort of multiple projectors, but they were also synced to maybe a mag audio that was playing at the same time, and then it was probably in stereo so that you would have speakers at different places. That's my guess. So there you go. Here's another amazing, man, I love post office training films. They're so good. So this one is how to drive your Mailster safely. Your Mailster. Enjoy.
The Mailster is a small, lightweight, three-wheel vehicle designed for safe driving. Models vary in appearance and have small mechanical differences, but they all operate in the same manner. However, if you are accustomed to driving a four-wheeled vehicle, there are certain distinctions you must observe when driving the Mailster. This film will show you how to make the necessary changes in your driving habits, so that you will become a safe Mailster driver. First of all, remember that the Mailster must not be driven over 25 miles per hour at any time. Use slower speeds in rain or snow, on rough roads, or when falling leaves cause streets to be slippery. Also, reduce your speed to less than 15 miles an hour before any turn. Keep within these reasonable speeds, and you'll deliver the mail safely by Mailster. This vehicle has a capacity of 500 pounds of mail. Keep the mail on the shelf piled low, both for clear vision and to prevent it from falling. Mail in the body compartment can be reached without leaving your seat. This compartment closes and locks securely from the front, as well as the back. Some models have sliding doors. During hot weather, the canvas apron at the front may be folded back or removed on some models. On others, it may be slipped down. In inclement weather, side curtains may be closed to provide protection for driver and mail. An arm hold beneath the flap enables hand signaling. When opening the side curtains, roll the metal clasp inside so it won't catch on your clothes. The steering mechanism is balanced. Keep both hands on the handlebars when driving, so you have complete control of the Mailster at all times. It is unsafe to hang anything from the handlebars. Now let's take a close look at the controls used to operate the Mailster. On this model, the handbrake is here. The turn signal switch here. This is the flasher signal switch. Horn button, windshield wiper switch, light switch, speedometer, parking brake, ignition switch, accelerator, foot brake, clutch, and dimmer switch. This is the gasoline filler cap, the choke, the hand throttle. A kickstarter is here. This is the oil dipstick. And the manual gear shift is convenient to the right hand. The starter button on this model is below the seat on the left-hand side. On other models, the starter is incorporated in the ignition switch. You simply turn the key past the on position to operate the starter. Some models do not have a kick starter, and the gear shift arrangement is slightly different. Switch the lights on shortly after dusk. The signal light switch is not automatic. Push it up to signal a right turn. Down for left turn. And turn it off manually after each turn. The flasher signal switch must be turned on and off manually. Use this flasher only when necessary as a safety device on heavily traveled streets. After you've made sure the Mailster is in operating condition, unlock the mail compartment with the ignition key and hold the door open with the catch. Place the mail for the beginning of the route on the shelf. Then load the mail you will deliver first at the front of the compartment so you can reach it from your seat. Lock the door after you finish loading. To be an efficient Mailster driver, you must learn to 1. Start the engine correctly. 2. Get underway smoothly. And 3. Drive professionally. First, let us see how to start the engine correctly. Before starting, make sure the transmission is in neutral and that the parking brake is set. Normally, you will use the electric starter. When the engine is cold, pull the choke rod all the way out and the throttle rod out about a quarter way. Now turn the ignition key to the on position and press the starter button. Push the choke rod part way in while the engine is warming up, and then, after the engine is idling, push both the choke and the throttle rod all the way in. The Mailster is now ready to drive. Should the electric starter fail, use the manual starter. When the engine is cold, the choke rod should be all the way out and the throttle rod a quarter out. Operate the starter pedal once or twice until you feel compression. Then, with the starter pedal at the top, give a vigorous push down. If necessary, leave the choke rod part way out until the engine warms up. When the engine is idling properly, push both rods all the way in. If the engine becomes flooded, push the choke rod all the way in and pull the throttle all the way out. Turn the ignition on and crank the engine until it starts, either with the electric starter or with the manual starter. When the engine starts, regulate the throttle. If the engine will not start, report the fact to your supervisor. Now, the second step to safe driving. Get underway smoothly. Observe oncoming traffic and give the proper signal. Some Mailsters have the automatic disc-type clutch, which does not engage until engine speed is increased. Manual-type clutches on others engage whenever the clutch pedal is in the up position. Always use the low gear to get underway from a standing position. Engage the gears with the clutch pedal, shift into low. Release the handbrake. Let up on the clutch pedal. Then accelerate smoothly to get rolling. Be sure to give the proper signal as you turn into traffic. Get the Mailster up to 8 miles an hour in low, then press the clutch pedal, close the throttle, and move gear shift to neutral. Hesitate momentarily, then shift into second, release the clutch pedal, and accelerate smoothly again. Never skip second gear. Continue in second until you're traveling between 12 and 16 miles an hour. Then, once again, press down on the clutch pedal. Close the throttle. Move gears to neutral. Hesitate momentarily, then shift into third gear. Use all gears, low, second, and third when driving. Now, release the clutch pedal. Accelerate smoothly and travel your route at speeds up to 25 miles an hour. Now the third step, drive professionally. Obey all city ordinances. As well as state traffic laws. Always remember that 25 miles an hour is the maximum speed permitted for Mailster driving. Keep both feet in the cab at all times when driving, and use the clutch only when necessary. Riding it causes excessive wear. Use the foot pedal to slow down and stop. This pedal activates mechanical brakes on the 2 rear wheels of some models and hydraulic brakes on others. On some models, the mechanical brake lever on the left handlebar controls the front wheel mechanical brake. Apply it only after you apply the foot brake. Use gradual pressure so the front wheel won't slide, or you may lose control of the vehicle. Use the parking brake whenever you stop to make a delivery. This parking brake has a hand adjustment knob, so you can take it up manually when it does not hold right. Place the brake lever in the off position and turn the knob to adjust it so the lever snaps to the on position. Do not adjust this brake too tightly. For safe parking on a downgrade, let the Mailster float forward until the front wheel rests against the curb. To park safely on an upgrade, let the Mailster roll back so that the rear wheel rests against the curb. Give the proper signal when turning into traffic from the curb, and make sure the way is clear. If you doubt that other drivers have seen your mechanical signals, supplement them with hand signals. If the Mailster is to stand for any length of time, turn off the ignition switch so that the air-cooled engine will not overheat. Otherwise, shift the gear selector to the neutral position at each short stop and pull up the parking brake. Reduce speed when making turns, or you may lose control of your vehicle. Always turn corners at less than 15 miles an hour. When circular driveways are available, use them to make a delivery. be extremely careful of pedestrians and children. Stop at the sidewalk before entering a driveway where vision is obscured. Park perpendicularly to the driveway to prevent rollbacks, and make sure you set the parking brake. After making the delivery, complete the U-turn and stop before re-entering traffic. Travel in reverse only when absolutely necessary. Children are attracted by the unusual size and design of the Mailster. Again, be extremely careful when children are about. Make sure they're out of your way before you start moving. Reduce speed on slippery roads and on rough roads. Always signal your intent when turning or stopping. Use extra precaution in traffic. Signal that you are going to change lanes well before you change. Remember that the Mailster is small and may be hidden from view of other motorists. Be an efficient and expert Mailster driver. Start the engine correctly. Get underway smoothly. And drive professionally, the safe way. The Mailster is designed especially to help you deliver mail efficiently with the least amount of physical effort. Drive it right, and it will serve you well.
Expert. I've never heard it pronounced that way. I've heard expert, but expert. Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I found a Wikipedia entry about the Mailster, which talked about how at its peak in the mid-60s, there were 17,000 of them. But there were some gotchas there. One of them is it has to be relatively flat terrain. It has to be temperate. Like, I don't think it would work in Buffalo. Like, it would be entirely too cold. Plus, driving through snow and ice would probably be a big problem. All right. I got one last film for you. This is a Cornet film. Or is it? No, it's an Encyclopedia Britannica film that we haven't watched. This is Energy, A Matter of Choices. Enjoy.
It takes a lot of energy to run an industrial society. Less than 6% of the world's population lives in the United States, but we consume over 33% of the world's energy.
We've used that energy to create a way of life that's the envy of many people.
Almost all our energy comes from the burning of fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, and oil. They were formed eons ago by the energy of the sun and stored in the earth until we started using them.
Take oil. We get almost half our energy from it. At the rate we're using it, there should be enough oil left to last us several more decades. Besides, some geologists estimate that half the world's oil reserves are still to be discovered. We use oil and its byproducts to heat our homes and businesses, power about 83 million cars and trucks,
and to make electricity.
Natural gas. It supplies us with about a third of our energy. The known supply of natural gas should last another 30 or 40 years. And some geologists say that there's a lot more to be found. We use gas to cook our food, heat and cool our homes,
and to make electricity.
Coal, about 20% of our energy, and several hundred years supply left. Coal goes into heating, making steel, paving roads,
but mostly to make electricity. We convert the energy of falling water into electricity. Less than 4% of our energy is produced this way, and the percentage is going down because there aren't any more big rivers to put new dams on.
And finally, the nuclear energy of uranium atoms provides about 1% of our energy. High-quality uranium should hold out for possibly 30 or 40 more years.
To be useful, nuclear energy, too, has to be converted into electricity.
So it looks like our energy sources are plentiful enough to last us well into the future, right?
And I join with Consolidated Edison in asking the full cooperation of New York citizens in reducing their consumption of power.
We called him up and he says, conserve all the lights you could. What can I conserve? I have no lights at all.
And suddenly we woke up one morning and found that homeowners, businessmen, and others were unable to get sufficient fuel.
Many cities and towns have been hit by energy shortages, including Princeton, Minnesota. In the middle of winter, when energy is needed most, the Princeton power plant was within a few days of running out of fuel to generate electricity. Schools had to let out early. Businesses, industry had to close early. Street lighting had to be turned down. Everyone had to conserve power.
The same thing's been happening everywhere since the early 70s. Not just in the United States, but in many industrialized countries. Suddenly, energy seemed to be getting scarce. Why, when we have such a wealth of energy sources available? Why now, all at once? And most important, what can we do about it?
The problems with electricity developed in much the same way they did with other forms of energy. And today's crisis in electrical energy is typical of today's or tomorrow's or the next day's crisis in oil, natural gas, or even coal. In the minds of most people, electricity and all it stands for are associated with one man, Thomas Edison. His first power plant supplied 59 customers with all the electricity they wanted, or at least all they could pay for. Before long, our taste for electricity was becoming a ravenous appetite. In the cities, electricity became big business. Just press the button. Electricity was there to make life easier. If you lived near a power plant, and if you could afford it. But lots of people didn't and couldn't.
That's the old way, the hard way. Yes, there is a machine to do the wash, but it runs by electricity. There are lamps you don't have to clean and trim and fill, but they run by electricity. Here on the farm, where it's needed most, electricity is hard to get. seems wrong somehow.
In the 1930s and 40s, all that changed. People wanted more power, so we just built more power plants, more dams, and we gave them the power they wanted.
Mighty Colorado flows as strong can be. So Uncle Sam said, River, I'd like to use your energy. I want to build a mighty dam to get some electricity. Now all the folks in this here land singing, River, work for me.
In the name of the people of the United States, to whom you, bold and armed, are a symbol of greater things in the future, I call you to life.
It's our own power and our own light, and it will belong to all of us here together. It's a friendly sound when the motor whirs. It's a friendly sight when the lights go on. It's the light and power we've never had, but we've got it now together.
The public wanted an unlimited supply of energy in all ways. Energy to run its factories, energy to light its homes, energy to build its automobiles, and utilities were responsive to that. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
In less than 30 years, our demand for power went up almost 9 times, and the supply went right up with it. Now there was plenty of power to go around, and it was cheap enough so almost everybody could afford it.
Of course, to help pay for all these power plants and to keep the price of power low, the utilities had to make sure there was a demand.
It's so hot in this igloo.
Well, Myrtle, sure.
Charlie, when are we gonna move?
Hi, I'm Mary Medallion, the all-electric girl.
Oh, an all-electric kitchen. It's so clean.
Because it's flameless.
And cool.
Every room can be cool and comfortable with electric air conditioning.
And so it went. Yesterday's luxuries became today's necessities.
But what did it cost us? Really cost us? Weren't we paying a price all along that didn't show up on our electric bill?
You leave your windows open 10 minutes after you clean your house. You have this black soot all over the floor. The baby can't even crawl on the floor. His clothes, his hands are filthy. They have to put a plant somewhere where there's not that many people.
We discovered that the environment has limits. Limits to the amount of pollution the air can absorb. Limits to the amount of water available to cool thousands of power plants. Limits to how much a river can be heated up without unexpected or unwanted results. Is electricity penny cheap when we have to scar thousands of acres of land to dig up coal? And when we get through using up all our energy resources, what'll be left? Sure, electricity is a public service, but it's also a public problem because we know how to control the energy, but not the harmful effects of using it. Gradually, more and more people asked whether the real costs of producing electricity were justified.
And we're protesting the proposed expansion of the Con Edison plant. It's the first time they've ever protested since 1928, but they literally believe, and as you can see, that it's a question of life and breath.
In public hearings all over the country, people opposed power plant construction, slowed it down, or stopped it altogether.
That the standards which are proposed are inadequate.
And we're going to have to realize that technology is not going to solve our problems.
And we are concerned, obviously, with the safety of children and people in the area.
We must be willing to limit ourselves
to conserve
Research
energy.
and development for Southern California Edison Company.
The utilities, who were responsible for providing power, warned that there would be problems ahead if the needed power plants were not built.
If we want to clean up the environment in Southern California, we're going to need more electricity, not less. And to meet this growing demand, Southern California Edison must be permitted to build more power plants. The need is now. So next time somebody says we don't need more electricity, ask him if we don't need a cleaner environment.
Meanwhile,
nobody wants any energy near them, and yet at the same time they've developed this paradoxical point of view of demanding more energy, and this is the environment that we're in.
by the early 1970s, demand was going up faster and faster, but supply, well, you can see where we're headed, unless we start doing something about it. Now.
Well, what if we increase our supply? Put our technology to work in as many ways as possible. If we don't have enough power plants, we should build new ones faster or expand the old ones.
If we keep increasing the demand the way we are, we'll have to complete one new power plant every 25 days for the next 15, 20 years. Can we really do that?
We can install special equipment to cut down on the pollution.
Who's going to pay for that expensive equipment? And besides, no anti-pollution system is 100% efficient. Something always gets out.
Well, what about looking for some of those fossil fuel reserves geologists in the Earth?
That'll take lots of time, lots of money. And it'll just use up our resources lots faster. Besides, there's another problem that has government officials worried.
And I happen to know that we'll be importing, by the year 1980 to 85, 50% of our oil. I think the political ramifications are frightening. It would cost our nation so much to import all of this oil that we should at least be willing to spend $50 billion over a decade to find a new source of energy and take away our dependency upon oil.
Now, that's a good point. We should develop new energy sources, like nuclear energy, build more of these plants, and go full speed ahead on developing the so-called breeder reactor, which produces more fuel than it consumes. It seems to be one of our best bets for increasing our energy supply in the future.
Maybe. But many scientists are convinced that nuclear power plants are not as safe as they should be. But even if they were, it'd take 10 or 15 years to build these new reactors. And what are we going to do with the huge quantities of radioactive waste these plants will produce?
Bury them.
Can we guarantee that they'll be safe there for thousands of years? And how ethical is it to make future generations look after our garbage?
Scientists are working on another kind of nuclear energy that doesn't have these problems, and that's nuclear fusion, the same reaction that gives the sun its energy. Once it's perfected, fusion power will give us an unlimited supply of energy.
If we learn to perfect it. But even the most optimistic scientists think that fusion power may not be developed for 50 years, if then, if ever.
There's the heat of the Earth's interior. Drill down to a layer of hot rock and use it to produce steam, then pipe the steam to a conventional power plant.
Like anything else, drilling steam wells takes time and money. And there aren't many places in the world where we can use this method.
Then let's capture the energy of the sun itself. It's free, and there's plenty of proof it works.
The general arrangement of the solar heating system is a collection of glass-covered panels on the roof of the house, and this heats air, and that hot air then is delivered to a storage unit in the house. Then, whenever the house requires heat, that hot air is distributed to the rooms through the ordinary piping system. Environmentally, we feel that solar is probably the least detrimental of any of the energy sources. There's every reason to expect that solar heating would be in substantial use in another 10 years.
10 years? 15 years? 50 years? We can't wait that long to increase the supply. We've got to try other things right now, like reducing the demand.
So we'll all sacrifice and go back to the old ways of doing things.
Hardly. Not many of us would be willing to do that. The idea is to use our energy more intelligently. I mean, is it really necessary to design office buildings like greenhouses so they need as much power for heating and cooling as a fair-sized town? Is it really cheaper in the long run for a developer to cut down all shade trees, build homes with little or no insulation, and then make the homeowner pay extra to heat and cool his house? What price are we really paying for the convenience of not having to open freezers and refrigerators? Making and using aluminum cans consumes about 4 times as much energy as using returnable glass bottles. But does the drink in the cans taste any better? It takes 3 times more energy to build a mile of superhighway than a mile of railway. And then it takes 5 times more energy to move the freight by truck than by train. Are these sensible choices? Or the automobile? 1/4 of all our energy goes into the gas tank. But 3/4 of what goes in as valuable energy comes out the tailpipe as waste. And that's not counting the energy it takes to make and sell the car in the first place.
But do you really think people are going to change their attitudes and the way they do things?
Well, not everybody, but some people are. Some stores have started turning off lights and escalators right after the customers leave. Buildings that used to be brightly lit at night now burn as few lights as possible. And some of the utilities themselves have changed their ways.
Do we really need all this? Or can we make do with this? Now, it won't solve the energy crisis, but it can help.
People very clearly stated to us in a variety of ways that they felt it was a part of utility obligation to deal with the question of energy conservation.
Encouraging signs, sure, but attitudes change slowly. Remember Princeton, Minnesota? Well, at the same time that Princeton was about to run out of power and heating oil was running low, oil refineries not far away were operating near capacity to produce gasoline. Gasoline which was selling at cut-rate prices. And plans on bringing even more energy consumers into the area were going full speed ahead.
But who has the right to tell a businessman that he can't make a profit on his investment? Or tell the town it can't grow just because energy's scarce?
I think the consequences of continuing as we are very clear. That it will no longer be a matter for voluntary choice, it will be a matter for government regulation.
We begin to realize that we have to have a plan, and that the only one that can implement a plan of this nature or develop a plan of this nature is the government.
One way or another, we'll have to make some choices if we want to solve the energy crisis. Ask ourselves questions like, if we develop new methods of transporting people to save energy, what will it do to our economy? To those of us whose jobs depend on the old ways of doing things? If we change the way we design homes and businesses to make better use of energy, how will that change our family life, our whole society? Because our society will be changed by both new ways of reducing the demand and new ways of increasing the supply. The question that faces us is, how will these changes be made? Will we decide on them, or will the energy crisis decide them for us?
So that came out in 73, so 50 years is now-ish. And yeah, we still don't have fusion that we can rely on. So yeah, these debates still rage on. And I'm not going to opine on it. But man, I really want to find that Mary Medallion commercial the all-electric girl. Holy cow. I found a mention of it. There's a compilation of DVDs called 1,000 Commercials. And it has that on it. And I think it's a PSA from a California power company, Edison. Man, that was awesome. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you watching and your comments and your expertise in kind of answering some of the questions that we put forth. If you like what you saw, please hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, subscribe, because our subscription numbers are failing. It might be because I am pelting people with 25 films a day. That will come to an end probably within by next week, because we're trying to hit 10,000 commercials, and then 10,000 films. Once we hit that, then what I'll do is I'll scale way back, because it is a lot of work to upload and get ready 24 films, and then to do the show every day. And I got other stuff I need to do, other things I want to do. So yeah, once we get to that point, then we'll kind of coast a little bit. And we will still be adding films, but not at that pace. Probably we'll go to at least half. I don't know. We have a lot of stuff, but also there's a big demand for getting other things done in my life. All right, everybody have a great rest of your day. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button. You can use the super thanks button. You can also go to ko-fi.com/abgeeks or patreon.com/abgeeks. Those are great ways to support us. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow on Wednesday. Take care.